Always a pleasure for me to welcome our YouTube audience. Thanks for tuning in, either on video or on audio. Thanks again for those of you who are able to make it here on this snowy morning, and anybody who's watching around campus on live stream. Always like to extend an invitation to you to come on down, and very grateful to be here. Today is a bit of a different message for the chapel service, and part of that's because I'm trying to be conservative about total time. And those who are new may not be aware, but one of the features of the chapel service is a rotation of topics, and another feature of the chapel service is attention to sacred calendars and the various traditions of the world. And another feature of the chapel service is the anniversaries that mark our alumni and sometimes staff who are marking milestones in their recovery. So all that intersects this morning in a neat way. The topic for the chapel service today is supposed to be honesty. The sacred calendars that most have my attention are yesterday was the Feast of the Epiphany in the Western Christian churches. I think today or yesterday also happens to be Orthodox Christmas. That's the Eastern Christian traditions. And there's something that goes together easily between honesty and Epiphany. And then as it happens also, I have decided each year I ask my dear friend, happens to also be my boss, who is our clinical leader in the organization, to come and help me celebrate my own milestone anniversary. And I've decided this morning to do that as part of the morning message. So Dave, if you want to come up, let's make it happen. This is Dave Rotenberg. He's our Chief Clinical Officer. Would you welcome Dave? And let me give him a mic.
Okay, Jack, so proud to be here with everyone. Dave Rotenberg, Chief Clinical Officer, proud Caron alum. Been climbing this mountain for almost 33 years. And it's awesome to see, even on a snowy day, most of the seats filled, or at least 3/4. I'll see you all tomorrow for chit-chat lecture, can't wait. I'm thinking about your recovery, Jack. And it's interesting to me that you started getting sober right as chapel was in its infancy. And that's not a mistake. If we believe in a higher power, which we do. When I started coming to chapel, ladies and gentlemen, it was not in this building. It was in the Caron Center or the Villa. It's the big building up the hill with a flag in front of it. And it wasn't this big, and it wasn't this many seats, but the late, great Father Bill had the vision, the inclusion, the creativity, and the pioneering spirit to start this beautiful service. And dare I say, that for the last 12, 13 years, maybe with one sabbatical in there, my friend Jack has made it even better. And that's an amazing thing, because in the Caron continuum, forget the Caron continuum, in the drug and alcohol treatment space, and I've traveled far and wide throughout the country, this is the finest, most inclusive, most energetic, bringing families back together, chapel service, and impactful clinical moment that you can see in our industry, man, not just at Caron. And that's really a credit to you. So when I say, hey, you got sober when this was just forming 36 years ago, you're getting sober 35 years ago, Brother Jack, I am so proud to call you friend, colleague, teacher, maestro. As Marty's Eagle shirt says, go Birds. It's been a tough month and a half, man. We got to do something a little better than what we've seen, right? Anyway, proud of you, and can't thank you enough for leading every Sunday, all of spiritual care at Caron, and really just bringing Caron and keeping Caron at the forefront and as a leader in the behavioral health space. I love you, and I'm proud of you. Congrats on 35 years. Look at this. Camera won't show it. We've got a standing ovation.
Well, I should have anticipated that would get me, and thank you so much, Dave. We do this every year, but this is the first time we've done this in this particular format. And I usually spend a lot of time preparing an address that is on the topic. And as I was getting ready for this week, one of the things we have is we have a number of anniversaries to observe as part of the heart of the service. And so I thought I would try to meld my own anniversary observance with the morning message. And so thank you. And as I thought about that, one of the things I thought I would do is I would just use my own story as part of the message. And so I hope you have an hour and a half. Just kidding. The very, very beginnings of my recovery, I date way before I stopped using. And in fact, there are two very pivotal moments that happened in fairly close succession when I realized it and I thought about it this morning. One was my godparent, when I was about like 17 years old, happened to be a person who had been a longtime AA member. And I went to visit him in San Francisco, and he was watching me buy dope in Union Square and stash weed in his apartment and drink like a fish. I didn't know what I was doing, but anyway, he decided to take me to lunch out in, I think Tiburon is a little island out in the San Francisco Bay, and he shared with me, he said, Jack, you ever think that you might have a problem with drinking? And I'm pretty sure I said, no. And but he went on to bear witness to his own recovery, and he said to me, Jack, if you ever decide that you have a problem, like, you could reach out to me. Well, the only reason I remember that now is that it got under my skin a little bit, because it was being tagged before I was ready. And then like a year later, I was in my freshman year of college. It might have been more like sophomore or junior year, but anyway, when I was in college, a couple years later, I was walking across the quad at Hampshire College in Amherst, Massachusetts, and I had a friend, his name was Jesse, and he casually said, Jack, you and I are alcoholic. And I felt like I could hear alcoholic, like echo across the buildings. It tagged me in a way that I was not really ready to act upon, but it was a breaking of denial. And so the truth of my being a person who is powerless over alcohol and whose life has become unmanageable as a result of my addiction was just beginning to be a dawning awareness there. Although there's no reason why I would not have qualified for admission to treatment at that point. I was drinking and using every day. I drank and used every day for 17 years before, and almost a decade later, at age 28, I shipwrecked on the shores of the 12-step movement and began my recovery in earnest. And I've been very, very fortunate to have the help that I needed to sustain my abstinence one day at a time. I was talking with a gentleman just this morning who is here beginning his 6th or 7th treatment stay. And I really find that amazing. I really I've thought a lot about these things over the years, and I've come to realize that it takes that kind of persistence for people sometimes to be gifted with the sustained long-term recovery that I have just been like weirdly able to enjoy. And so if you are here and you have been in treatment before, you have tried this and you're coming back, I just want to applaud you. I think it's awesome that you are trying again. And so that's one piece of truth. But so the other thing I thought I wanted to say was that I can bear witness, in fact, to not having taken a mind or mood altering chemical for intoxication purposes in 35 years, which is really weird. At the same time, over those decades, I have grown to realize just how unwell I was. And it's taken, I'm still working on progress, not perfection. And I just would have never understood that one could be 35 years into a recovery journey and still feel like there was a novice aspect of it. But I've just recently turned a corner on awareness of a way in which I feel like addiction is continuing to manifest in my life. It might have something to do with shopping, but so there were really 4 stages of that I thought I would bring forward without using up too much time. So the very first layer was substances. And the first step of the 12 steps of AA and Narcotics Anonymous, which were my refuge when I was awakening to that degree. The first step is we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. We were powerless over addiction, our lives had become unmanageable. And the we of that was crucial for me because I did not realize that there were other people who could help me. I suffered alone and was unable to stop myself on my own. So presto, change, all of a sudden I was stitching together one 24-hour period after another and not picking up and using. But the second big layer of addictive awareness would come as I started in my first, second, third year of sobriety to participate in programs like, at the time, ACOA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, Al-Anon, and a program called Codependence Anonymous. You don't see those programs in anywhere near the popularity, that's a weird word, but they're not as easily accessible today as they were in the 1990s, and even more in the 1980s. It was kind of all the rage in recovery to deal with family of origin issues. And I had family of origin issues so important for me to realize that I developed as a biological adult in a family that lacked a lot of skills in interpersonal relationships. I was not good at, what they call today courageous conversation. I was not, I couldn't label a feeling if it rose up in the middle of my body. And I had to learn, this was a piece of honesty unfolding in me, that I struggled in this area, that I was not, I've come to believe over the years that most of us who are substance addicted are also relationally compromised. I think those go closely together. And I love that I get to be the principal presider at the chapel service at Caron because those are kind of the 2 audiences here most of the time besides our alumni and any weird guests who happen to stray in here for some other reason. But it's either people who are addicted to substances and waking up to that, or it's the loved ones who love them. And so there's this awakening to a kind of a tandem ill health in functioning on both sides of that coin. And so after substances, I had to get honest about how difficult things like intimacy and relationship were for me. And that's been a lifelong project and continues to be an area of important focus for me. I'm in my second marriage. My first marriage imploded out of that lack of skillfulness. And then a third area of awakening and honesty, I wanted, when I first was thinking about sharing this morning, I was like, I don't know, maybe this wasn't an addiction there, but it absolutely was. So in my early sobriety, I identified as an atheist. I believed in the non-existence of God. I was quite sure there was no such thing. And when AA was like a higher power, I used to sort of chuckle in my mind with this superiority. I don't know why people rely on that stuff. But I had been gifted with this bizarre transformation of abstinence and this journey and all these people and all this help. And so there was this dissonance between my intellectual suspicion and skepticism and the reality of my living a life of grace. And so I did the weirdest thing. I went to seminary. And I did not go to seminary as a profoundly persuaded Christian. I went to seminary out of a deep curiosity about whether I could find a theology that would fit me. And I'm still working on that, by the way. And so this spirituality was the third layer of honesty for me, was to reach the point where I realized that I could not truthfully hold to this idea that we are all alone in the world and that it's just individual strivings and dog eat dog and the Adam Smith invisible hand of, like economic forces and all these things that I had learned and studied that were skeptical and analytical, that there was power beyond something I could explain or understand. It was evident in my life. It was evident in the world I was taking a look at. And it was really quite exciting, and it transformed my life. And where it connects with recovery is I remembered in 1994, let's say, so 5 years into my sobriety, I was a student pastor, and I had the privilege of pastoring a small church, not a terribly long distance, maybe about an hour and a half from here, in this little community called Port Deposit. And this small church, they were lovely people, but they were not honest about addiction themselves. And I found this guy, his name was Keith Miller, and he'd written a book called Hunger for Healing. And it was one of the very early offerings in an attempt to bring Christianity and the 12 steps together. And I started a Christian 12-step study group in this church that I was serving. So today there's all kinds of faith-based resources for 12-step people. You can do a thing called Celebrate Recovery, or you can do Life Recovery. And in Judaism, there's 12-step stuff for Jewish persons, and there's 12-step stuff for Muslims, and there's 12-step stuff for Buddhists, and there's almost all the main wisdom traditions of the world today have materials to help the person who follows that particular wisdom tradition also use the 12 steps in a way that innovates their lives. Because one of the really amazing things about the 12-step traditions is that they're capable of being symbiotic with various faith approaches. It's a really, really cool thing. Anyway, I had to get honest that I wasn't in control of my life and the universe. I had this delusional arrogance and underneath of it was this loneliness. It's like lonely and depressing to think that everything rests on me. And I've been gifted with faith and with an opportunity to live a life of service that brings me here today. The last vestige or tier or periphery of honesty that I thought I could talk about, on Wednesday morning I posted on social media a longish post, which happened to be my actual calendar anniversary. And I included not only the Roman numeral 35, which is the typical salute to the count of days, but I included pictures of my wife and myself, and then of our extended family with my wife's 2 boys, who now I think of as my sons, and their significant others, and 2 granddaughters. What I've been able to get honest about is that I need love. I need family. I need belonging. I need a home. I need something more than no disrespect, but my collegial relationships. I need something more than my work and vocational life. And one of the ways that's happened for me is terrifying medical challenges over the years, but I'm in this turn of dependence and reprioritization of my life where family is first and love is first and ministry is second. And I'm deeply persuaded that is a wiser and more, it's just the right thing for me. And I don't do it well yet. And the family I'm so deeply eager to love is not necessarily ready for me to be where I am ready for. So it's an ongoing journey. I plan to stay abstinent today, put my head on the pillow tonight and not pick up a drink or drug. I was taught that early on by my brother. That's the secret. If you want to know, the secret is to not pick up under any and all circumstances. And there's a truth that also applies for the family member, which is like, if you set boundaries, hold to them under any and all circumstances. That we have to learn to do these things one instance, one challenge, one opportunity at a time. And it's been a long, long road. I thank you for having given me the opportunity to make chapel way more about me than I feel terribly comfortable with. But it's just the way it's sort of shaped out today. And we're going to have at least one other big celebration and anniversary. We may have some time for sharing. We have a number of other points that we're going to sort of do. But that's the end of the message. I would encourage you, I was taught whenever I preach to have an invitation. And the invitation I hope for today is to see yourself as being here for a reason that involves a progressive set of discoveries that are ahead. There's truth to be found that brought you here. It may just involve substances for the moment, or it may just involve your family dynamics for the moment. But there may be way more ahead. One of the great promises of Narcotics Anonymous and of Alcoholics Anonymous sort of borrows it from NA, but is life beyond our wildest dreams. And what that means, very easy to misunderstand that, is that you don't even know to dream what's ahead. What's ahead may be so great that it's not even on your radar yet. That's like for me, the marriage, family, and grandkids. I would have never put that on my center dream stage. And today's the most important thing in my life. So open your hearts, open your minds, and get ready for some wild truth. Because it's here to be found. And it's in the discovery of the, out of vagueness and into clarity is where love and healing abide. So welcome to the Truth Road. Thank you so much.